in soggy forest.
Okay, so topics. I would like to run through my conclusions on auto-generating code. I'd like to talk about the experience I've had with auto-generating modules today. Um, I want to hear about how you went with the dual audio transcriptions um, and anything else that you might have. That's it.
Okay, good. And the topics that I would like to put forth is how I went on with the dual audio transcriptions. A bit of a story around the frustrations around that, but also that has actually led me to a different train of thought, um, which can be, I think, quite fruitful. So it's
Okay,
that one topic. Okay, do you want to go first?
sure thing. First, I have a confession. I did not. I did not drop the auto generation of the microphone system immediately, and I spent what totaled another 2 hours on it this morning. I know that that was off schedule, but I felt like I still had some lessons to learn in that area, and so I hope the commander will forgive my discretion. But that's one of those cases where I think that I took a gamble that I could get paid by going off piste.
Okay.
And I think I did because I feel like I have a solid understanding of what you can and can't do with auto generated code now. I think it taught me that also it's very important to not, like, we should not be trying to make tools that do auto generation of things. We should be making a platform on which anyone can make auto generation tools upon. And so, an example of that might be like if we were, not that Microsoft Office is going anywhere fast these days, but if we were to say make Microsoft Excel using our platform, we would not try to code Excel itself. We should be trying to code a system by which you could build a modular version of Excel where people could come and build their own buttons that do different things. And so basically, the entire thing is made of plugins instead of trying to present a monolithic thing or a finished thing. I think that that's an architectural fallacy that will persist for some time. Do you have anything, questions, or thoughts to add on that approach?
Yeah, I like the approach. It's slightly different from what we were saying when we were going to use these tools ourselves because they're tricky and contain a certain amount of art in order to produce the CRM. So just a reminder of that head mark on the CRM. However, as we were saying yesterday, the 2 hours that you spent um, wrangling with code generation is actually generating your own understanding of that art. So
Yeah,
it's not wasted.
yeah, that was the thing. I felt like I didn't quite understand, like I was close to hitting the limits of it. And those limits are like what's confounding me a lot with my thinking, I think, is this: the release of O3 is sort of haunting me like the coming of Christ in a way, because I'm like, uh-oh.
It's
And
third
then
coming.
and then it's like, if you you are lost if you spent your time trying to make tooling that sped up the bots, and then O3 arrives and you're like, well, that was a waste of time. And so there is still utility. Like V0 has some great features that are probably always going to be useful features, like the ability to generate a collection of files, to generate a user interface, to generate, like humans are still going to need user interfaces, just nowhere near as complicated as they did before. And so the lesson I learned was that the more the more features you're trying to pack into a single generation, the worse the bot performs. And I think that doesn't matter whether you're running O3 or not, because it's not even so much about the ability of the bot. It's about the number of variables, that the number of possible paths that it could choose, because it's in another way of saying it, the more you ask it to do, the less you know about your task. And so I concluded that the folly I was making was trying to generate a complete full stack solution, which, if I'm honest, is a bit of a chore even for a human. But the bot was getting it wrong. Firstly, the bot was inferior, like it was like 4.0 or something, or 0.1 mini or something. But even if the bot wasn't inferior, the question was inferior. And so it was also the vanity, I suppose, or I don't know what the word is for the error I was making, which was to wish that the bot could do it all without me taking the time to read the code, understand the code, and correct the bot in detail.
The
It
fallacy
was
of positive thinking.
okay. Maybe that doesn't sound quite like it. I'll keep going with my description of my pain, and perhaps another definition will approach. It was the same fault I observe in any time I've worked for someone making code. They never want to get into the details with me about it, and they keep just demanding things, and I'm like, is this it? Is this it? Why don't you sit down and talk to me? And I don't think that's a human error. The bots are now doing that to me too. And so the key is I have to sit there with the bot and read the files that it makes and give it architectural guidance on as narrow a thing as possible, because the more I leave it up to the bot, the more the errors that I have in my description, through my own lack of awareness of what's possible, get amplified by the bot. And so the lesson is that there's no magical, hey, make me the dream catcher, and then this thing whirs away and then out it comes. That's never going to happen, no matter how good the bot is, because we can't ask for it precisely enough without feedback. Would you like to? I can keep going. I just thought I should pause for questions.
It's interesting that I'm getting the same thing on this side in a different thought domain. The definitions was a way of being more concise, and I'll go through what I've done on the transcripts, which is clunky, but points to the same thing. So we're touching on quite an important heuristic here, in that the sloppier you are in your own thinking, that is amplified into super sloppy. The more
no, that does not capture it enough. We knew that already. That does not capture it. The reluctance, our reluctance to go through every line that the bot produced amplifies the drift that was seeded with our first inadequate prompt. And so a failure to correct that leads to madness, where the bot is giving us things that are sort of close, and then you ask it to fix another thing, and then it comes back with that thing fixed, but something else is broken, and then you end up like that story of the designer who was being asked to make a poster for finding someone's dog and just was taking the piss basically by doing what they asked but adding something wrong each time. And then you just devolve down this sort of cycle of trying to fix it. But you can't just stand on the sideline and shout at the bot. I don't know why you can sort of do that with a human, like a really good human. You can sort of shout on the sidelines at them, but that's not really intelligence that the human's doing. It's like, I don't think the bot's ever gonna be able to mimic that. Because the human. Well, look, I don't know. I feel like I'm waffling on as to why that is. But the bot, I feel confident for the foreseeable future. There's no way that it could get that kind of thing right, because you need to work with someone very closely for a number of years before they can do what you want with very little instruction. And the same with you working for other people. And so, no, I don't think any bot's really gonna pick that up. Even if we took the smartest guy on earth ever, multiplied by 10, and then dropped him in to work with us, we'd still be beating him up for some time until he learned what we want.
I agree with everything you just said. How would you characterize that in a statement of a heuristic or a method or a pattern?
I would say the pattern is yours is the architecture, and you must care for it and nurture it at every stage. Do not leave it up to the bot. The bot does the leaves, you do the branches. And you have to have in mind an internal structure that you want adhered to. The bot will be wrong, because if you ask for the leaves and the bot does the branches, it won't be right. That feels sort of not the heuristic you're looking for.
That was quite woolly. But if I try and paraphrase that, using my own experience as well, in that you've got to have, you can use a thread to hack out your architecture. Because part of it, you need to be talking about smaller and smaller parts to get it accurate and make it aware, but not writable to the layer up.
Yep, that's closer, but still, that's still not hitting it. That is much better than my effort, though. Let me try again. The heuristic, I think, is constraint and exclusion. And so to attempt to dump the entire project at the feet of the bot and ask for an entire project back will cause you many more loops. And those loops will be maddening because the knowledge gap or the intellectual distance between the responses from the bot each time will be large, because that's how much freedom you gave it. And so constraint is how you get what you want. You need to pin it down, like you see those frogs and animals being dissected, where you stretch out little bits and pin it. You can't work on the system without fixing some parts and without excluding some parts. It's rude to attempt to chuck everything at the bot and to expect it to know what you mean by everything. The bots have, like all intelligent beings, a curse of knowledge. Whatever you say to it will affect the answer in some way. So be very, very sparing in what you pass to it. Is that sounding better?
Yes, yes.
Some other things.
So,
Sorry.
sorry, go ahead.
Some other things that I hope that what I find O1 Pro is very good at is taking a statement, like messy statements like this, that point at a thing and then saying the actual thing just with enough gestures. The other type of the other way to sum it up, I suppose. But can I just get a 5-second or so pause here? Okay, so the deeper issue, skipping ahead, the skipping way ahead. What I noticed was that in V0, the bot was being asked to make a full stack app, and it's the full stackness that confuses it in some way. And so where I think that's a great benefit for the Dreamcatcher is that the NAP format and the widget in the state board is about as pure as you can get. Like there is no, the component package purpose was as focused as it could possibly be. And that means that the bot has got very little other concerns to be bothered about. And so I think that means that if we angle our framework right, that our framework can be very LLM friendly, so that the bots are good at prompting for it. Because like Vercel, for example, is trying to have the bot deploy a database, an S3 bucket, a web API for the server, static page hosting, then the HTML that gets published, and then the interactive and styling bits, and then the state management of React. And you're like, you could imagine that a super powerful bot might be able to get all that done, but I doubt it. And, like, even a super intelligent bot you'd expect would need the ability to iterate in terms of running the code. Like we must remember that these bots are they're generating these outputs purely theoretically without actually running it on the machine, which is a remarkable feat on their part. But the execution of the code is the gold standard. I feel like I'm nearly at the end of my point. Is it if you're okay to bear with me? The other problem is that when you're working on a V0 app and you want to deploy it, you have what Vercel's made it very quick. It's like 30 seconds, but it's still this rather heavy deploying process. And so the idea of naps sitting in the state board is actually that the thing you're using, you can be generatively coding a version of it and having it run directly in your browser with no deploy step, so that when you're done, you're ready to go with it. And so instead of making packages that are like baked and then done, they're packages that are constantly being twiddled by everyone around to just make it do something a little bit different here and there. So the package is less hard and it's more malleable. And I really do think that the NAP format and the widgets makes it possible to get useful bundles of intellectual property or useful code like user interface or algorithms or something without the headache of all that infrastructure, which no matter how good the bot gets is just going to make it, is just noisy. It's just going to confuse it. And so if we can make a system that was actually, the framework was designed for LLMs to operate on effectively, it would actually look very similar to what we're proposing for NAPS plus widgets, because it's the minimum required to get the computing features that we all want. And that's the lesson, I think.
Pause. I agree.
Okay, so to carry on with my strategy now with V0 is to use it to just make the UI pieces that I want, no backend, and more importantly, to make the UI pieces as individual components where I control the architecture of how they plug together, how the interfaces between them go, and all that. So I need to actually pay attention to the code, correct the architectural problems in the code at each step before moving on. And that, I believe, is how you get good quality output faster than a human in the current world we're in. Totally over to you.
It sounds like there's an iterative process here, backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
I entirely agree with what you're saying about getting a very concise thing to talk about, and then going back to your earlier point of a couple of weeks ago about the trigger level necessary to change that, because it's going to burn tokens. You need to figure out what the change impact will be, but you can build these widgets. Now, inside of your head, you've got the architecture, but that doesn't mean you can't step up and talk about an equally concise thing to a bot where the widgets are simply assertions. So you don't change any of these. These are the things we've got. And
Yeah.
This is what you're wanting. And then you step up
Yeah.
and you step up to the entire thing.
Yeah. And so telling it to focus like only this component. Now, it may be that O3 will overcome some of that, but I feel like it doesn't matter how good the bots get. It's not about the bots, actually. It's about our ability to drive the bots. And that precision, exclusion, and focus, those are qualities that have been favored by logicians since the dawn of time. Those will always be good. And so the trick is the training that I feel that I have to go through, and I think you have to go through, is to be comfortable rinsing or ditching everything and starting again, because we tend to look at the code with the same preciousness as though we labored for it as humans. But the speed at which it gets made, like, it's back to that old analogy about students making clay pots. You split them in half, tell one that they have to make the best one ever, and tell the other one that they have to make the most possible. And the quality at the end is better in the ones that were told to make the most possible.
I didn't know that. Well, that's interesting.
That's a general principle in life. Volume matters.
Volume has a quality of its own, to quote Stalin.
Thank you for your communist doctrine. But if we can get in the habit of just the number of times I've reached the solution faster by ditching what the AI said and starting again, the actual thing, I think, the strategy that seems most productive is whenever I step way back and ask the bot for a range of options. And I'm like, here's my problem, give me a range of options. And it tries some, and then I go and Google a bit and come in with some other things. And it's about that peekaboo mode of a missile is, where it's like, hup, survey, and then down, that's essential.
That
And,
makes a hell of a lot of sense to me. Not only with what I've been doing on this side, but also with how command control works. So you have one person in charge, and you get 5 people giving you options about how to take this hill. And then that one person has an idea of their overall objective and go, right, we'll do that. And if that doesn't work, this.
right,
And the rest of you fuck off.
right.
Um,
But also cycles, repeating, starting again, asking the same question with slightly different wording. When the bot asks you clarifying questions, try doing different combinations of answers. Like, diversity of response seems to yield a more fruitful answer in the end.
yes, I agree.
The bot does not actually know. The bot does not actually know. It just I don't even know how to describe it, but I'm getting a sense for it. It's not wise. It's really your servant, and it's not. It's like there's a different skill to driving it accurately that you gotta not think of it like a smart person, not think of it like a. It's like each time it runs, it's a new person. It's not the same thing. It doesn't remember anything. And when you run it with the same question twice, you get different answers. And so you should do that so that you get like sort of like a quantum worlds type of thing where you see these multiple parallel worlds and then you're like, I like that one, and you pick it.
I agree. You indulge me with a speakeasy.
Speakeasy.
Um, it seems obvious now, but I wholeheartedly agree with what you're saying. Based on what I'm finding on this side, doing something completely different. But it does remind me of HAL in 2001, where there was an unintended consequence because I was doing exactly what he was told to do, but had conflicting orders, and was just doing his best, and ended up, you know, killing whatever the guy's name was. There is something about the limitations and the context that is absolutely crucial for this. That's all I've got to say on the speakeasy. I just like to voice that because
I
I
think
it's fundamental.
Yeah, and I think that you and I both have a sense of it. We don't know how to describe it, but I think we're doing okay because we are, at the very least, we are immersed in this stuff, and that's how we're shifting how we look at the world. And sometimes we overshoot. Like, I was trying to get the bot to do all the coding, but then I was like, I actually have to do some of the coding, and I have to read the code, and I need to like modify the code and then feed it back. It's not a complete fire and forget thing, and I should never be trying to make it generate at all. You and I are getting a feel for these things before they're really documented, and I don't think it matters to document them, honestly, because the next model will be here so fast. And so I guess my fear is like, am I spending time learning skills that will be obsolete? And I think the art of focus, the art of componentizing, the art of modularity, those are not actually skills. Like, the way I started looking at it is that that's not a skill to learn for the sake of the bot. That's a skill to learn for my sake so that I know what the bot is doing, or I can make it do what I want. And that's a different thing. Like, that doesn't matter how smart the bot is. Modularity, programming to interfaces, having good reasoning, being open to options, relaxing constraints, not being over specific, having multiple tries, parallel concurrent runs, like, that's for me, actually. That's the only way that I'm going to understand these systems is with those types of disciplines and conventions or strategies. And so that's why I'm like, this is always going to be, I learn these skills because this will always be my fault. And it won't matter how smart the bot is. I still need to go through it step by step. That's just how it is. And so the highest speed is where I have trained my own failings or weaknesses or slownesses to be as well interfaced with the bot as possible. And that's as good as it gets, I think. You can't go any faster than that, and that's a limitation.
I agree, and I think you've just listed a whole bunch of heuristics that even if the bot never knows about them, we need to train ourselves
It's
as
us,
our
yeah.
context.
Yeah, dude, it's us. It's us that needs to train on them. I was like, how can I make the bot make up for my failings? And it's like, well, I need to fix me.
Yes, and yes. Okay. Right, shall we end speakeasy?
In Speakeasy.
Okay. Have you got anything else to go through on your side?
The only other thing was a sort of a report on an experience I had with getting O1 Pro to do an XML parser, which was kind of torturous, actually. But I think we covered 80% of the point of it in the previous conversation, so I don't think that's a good use of time, actually.
Okay. Can I add, kind of table something
Sure.
that I didn't mention before that I just thought about that could save my time?
Yeah.
So, Transcriber appears not to have implemented the local file transcription, which is not a problem, in that I just pulled down the code, the curl, and got it, but you appear to be doing some post-processing on the JSON that you get back.
Yeah.
It would be useful to have that local file transcription. Now we've got separate audio channels.
So you're asking me to... So you want a command in the CLI?
Same as whatever Transcriber did
Yeah.
with the YouTube /u URL.
Yeah. Yeah.
Transcriber file /I file name. That second one would be helpful.
And I didn't implement it, right? It was just stubbed there, and it wasn't actually right. But you actually want me, so you're like, here's an audio file, transcribe it, and then generate the nice, friendly, formatted text output, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Cool.
so-
I can do that for you. Yeah. So I mean, like, I guess the those initial modules that we made, those CLI things, they came out really well, and they were auto generated, and then we started trying to tackle more less isolated things, and it got real hard real fast. But I feel like, we're fucking back up there again. I'm still going, like,
Yeah.
apart from the 2 hours this morning, I spent the rest of the day doing the CRM stuff. There are some delays. It's weird. Like the XML parser took significantly longer than it should. Like, it took like 4 hours, which is still faster than doing it as a human. But it seems to again come down to the bots give you the ability to find your wrong paths faster. So I guess that's why it feels exhausting, because you like thought about this whole library, learned about it, figured out why it wasn't working, and then you're like, well, that sucks. And then you move, and it's like that switch or the restart typically doesn't happen very often in coding, and everyone like gets up in arms about it, and they're like, oh my god, what are you doing? But actually, that's the strategy. Restart often. Don't be afraid to just, like, it's so cheap to make the code. start again.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah. I also abandoned storing the docs and stuff. I've taken to just copying and pasting the docs I need into the chat at the time as opposed to trying to store them, because I've abandoned the notion of trying to feed all of the project in. Like, it really just doesn't seem to matter. It's better to just give it the docs that I know it needs at the time. Yeah. All right, I think I've done enough talking. I'll sit back and listen.
Okay, I'll go into the topic, which you'll recognize a lot from. So, my task at the moment is to get Commander up with knowledge structure that gives good output, good being defined as a prioritized list with, in due course, an Overwatch that tells us what to do next. And the subtask for that is, how do you store the information that we are giving each other in these transcripts? Now, yesterday we tried recording on separate audio channels, but it turns out the transcript is really good. DeepGram is really good at picking up even incredibly faint echoes from a headset, which is why the 2-meter thing. And so rather than be stopped, I decided, well, I'm just going to go with the full-blown transcript. I'm not going to diarize it at all. And I'm going to start asking the bot to pick out the trains of thought, as opposed to who said what. And that has...
Oh, that's because who cares?
Right. If we agree on something, who cares? If we disagree, that's important.
It doesn't matter
If we
who did the
agree,
disagreement.
then it's a thing. Now, that doesn't help with contribution, but I think we could probably retrofit
Retrofit it, yeah, like we don't need that now.
Right. So I dumped in an undiarized DeepGram of everything we were saying yesterday,
right?
And got it to identify what the topics were.
Oh, like you. So hang on. So you turn diarization off completely, and we just like transcribe it, and then you're like, "Hey, process this."
Exactly, and as if we were like one person just having thoughts, and sometimes agreeing with themselves, sometimes thinking that doesn't work,
right,
and so on.
Right.
And let's extract the topics, because the topics can be informed all the way through. And it turns out this was a lot of burning of tokens, but who cares?
Yeah.
It turns out that the topics came out pretty clean. Now let me share you a link of our last conversation and see what you think. And I'll show you. This is only one of many threads. So, okay, copy link. But I believe, or I assert, that this is a fruitful way of thinking about it in terms of reflecting what you're saying about what's the widget. I think in thought, the widget is the topic. And in the same way as widget has things like font and color, the topic has things like arguments for, arguments against, but you allow then I've not done this yet, but you allow the commander to listen to the arguments for, against, and over time as well,
Right.
and then give a conclusion. So if you can bring that up, this, and I've not read this yet because this is what I allow.
Sorry, so I'm looking. Am I pulling up WhatsApp?
Yes, the link I just sent you on WhatsApp.
WhatsApp.
And this will be
WhatsApp.
an unpracticed demo. So
Hey, the best kind.
Yeah.
Sharing screen. What you doing?
Right. So if you scroll up, so I haven't. Um,
Mate, have you found yourself wishing for a ChatGPT compatible mouse that has like
oh, that'll be awesome, wouldn't it?
scrolling or like scrolling by message, so like next message, next message, next message, and then like a freewheel, you're like, vrng, yeah.
That's not my thread. This is not the thread you're looking for.
This is the one I sent. You sent?
Building a recorder app. No.
What?
Oh,
Oh,
no, no, no. It's no, no. It is because that's what I've asked it to do. Okay, right. If you go up, here are the topics. No, this is the right thing. Okay, so for each building a recorder app, that's why.
Christ Almighty, 11 minutes.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm burning this thing.
Who, Sam Altman released a blog post today where he was like, yeah, so we're losing money on O1 Pro. People are using it a lot more than we thought.
Yep.
And I was like, dude, as soon as they were like, all you can eat, and after me like hitting you up a couple of times about the money you spent on the API for O1 calls, I was like, all you can eat, you're gonna regret that. So let's get in there before they fucking turn that off.
This is why it's slightly late to the recording. So you'll recognize that as DeepGram output. Now what I've said is, well,
Jesus Christ, that's a fat load, man.
What I've asked it to do is, there are two speakers here. They're
What
talking
the Christ?
about similar concepts. I want you to extract those concepts and then summarize them. I want you to point out where there's agreement or disagreement.
Ugly task.
Yeah. And it's got it pretty good. And I was reviewing it by listening to it. And even where the transcript diarization path, because remember that this is part of a flow where there's been previously diarized. But then I got it to think about concepts. Now, the interesting thing about concepts that's really what we're interested in. We're not particularly interested in conversation. So, well, have a read. I've not read this yet. So I've gone for summary, arguments, debate, and assertions because I think then that is the conceptual equivalent of a widget. Building a recorder app is a widget.
That's quite a nugget right there. Fast AI code generation still doesn't remove the need for deep architectural thinking. I'd say that's one of our strongest lessons. Like, that was a stiff one to learn, and you only learn it from suffering. And it's like, you got these machines, but how fast can you go? It's not infinite. It's like, it speeds you up, but you still got to work. And so there's some slowness there. Man, this is accurate. Is this all from the same transcript?
Yeah. An initially undiarized transcript.
Dude, I can't get over how much reasoning O1 Pro did. Like, I've never, ever made it do that much reasoning, because, like...
I'm being nasty to it, I really am.
Yeah, I guess the kinds of things that... So you're the reasoner, right? You do the reasoning for us. For code, I've been trying to ask it, like, the more simpler questions, the better. But for reasoning, you can actually ask it deep questions. And I think, like, it's almost like coding, you don't want it to think too hard. Like, like, it's a funny difference, but reasoning, you want it to think even harder. It's weird.
Yeah. Now,
it actually transcribed the name really well, because...
Yeah, well, VS0 got slightly wrong, but that's
fine.
It's
not wrong, really. I mean, it's...
But it got what each... I don't think at any point in the transcript, you said what Superbase did, and it understood what Superbase did.
Right.
Don't know how, but
Well,
so
Superbase is very popular, right? So it knows how that all works.
it's probably baked in.
But
So
but
what I'm
V0
thinking,
was not around at the knowledge cutoff.
what it says is quick for UI generation, so you must have
Yeah,
mentioned that.
yeah, I mentioned it, but it doesn't have it in its
Yeah.
internal knowledge.
So what I'm thinking is each of these topics are a bit like widgets, and with a new transcript, you can pull out the topics, and then in another thread, refer to previous topics and see whether we're making progress in them, because it's got arguments for, arguments against, and we can allow the commander to suggest things that we've missed. We can also use this in order to generate stux, I believe. But I think that might need additional information in terms of what is important. But again, what's important is a topic in the same way as we've got meeting discipline now, and you shut up while I'm talking, and vice versa. It really gets quite quickly when a topic is changed, but you need to prompt it to not look about who's speaking, but
Right.
what was being spoken about.
Okay, so that's your lesson there.
Yeah.
Okay. Plus, so a little bit of meeting discipline coupled with pointing the bot at the groupthink as opposed to the individual.
Yes, and also linking it back through time, where maybe one of these topics was raised last week,
Right.
and then building up on the topic.
Right. These are fabulously clear, and I mean, like, this is just from one conversation. Imagine how clear this will get when it's cross-referenced with the previous week's changes, or like these snippets get stored as a note in a database, and then it gets fetched and then reconciled. Like, this is incredible clarity for just one conversation with zero context.
Yeah, and you notice I've specifically not told it to come to a conclusion, because I could think the conclusion is dynamic.
Right. Yeah, if you give it space to actually think for you, it will fill in some glorious gaps.
Yes, yeah. So for each of these, then this output can be put into another thread, and given it the right context, which is like a slice of the GitHub, it should be able to conclude what we should be doing next, but also change its mind without being burdened by something called a conclusion here, which it would over-index on.
Can you explain that more for me?
Yeah, so the reason I haven't included conclusions is if we put in conclusions there, it would say, you guys decided. Probably we didn't.
Knowing us, we certainly didn't.
Yeah.
But it's almost like the conclusion. The conclusion is wrong because the mode we're in is not a concluding mode. We're in a holy shit, what do we do mode. Conclusions are like, what are they even worth, right? There's like one conclusion per conversation, if that. Like they just don't exist. They're just not in the tone of our conversation yet, because we're like, each thing that we talk about has more questions than answers.
Well, yes, but even if we do conclude something, if we record it as an assertion, say, let's concentrate on the commander and the CRM, that's an assertion, which can be questioned, because the bot is not being told that we've already made up our mind. Maybe we shouldn't be doing that.
That's a really subtle, powerful angle to take. Perhaps it should be that only the commander can conclude.
And the conclusion is a runtime event and can change.
Yeah. I love this format. Where did this format come from?
I just asked it to. You can have a look at the prompting. There was a number. I think at one point I had 7 tabs open to get to this point where I was asking it how to do it. But essentially, go through this, identify the concepts, and then list those concepts for each, summarize them, then go back through the discussion and identify where there was areas of agreement and where there's areas of disagreement, and where there were simple assertions that appeared to be agreement, where it wasn't a discussion anymore. It's like, yeah, we agree on that, and that would be an assertion.
Right, because it's really not for us to be in service of the commander, it doesn't matter what we conclude. Like, we're here to give the commander information and opinions, not like its job. Commander's job is to conclude, to direct, to weigh up and balance.
Yes,
this is
exactly.
Excellent. This is absolutely excellent.
And the interesting thing about this is the assertions can be refuted with additional information from Overwatch.
Yeah. But they're pretty good, and to be honest, I mean, if you listen to the conversations, it's hard to get that wrong. It's just really neat how well it summarized it.
Yeah. Yeah. And 11 minutes of Mr.
Of token
Sam's
grinding. Oh, mate. That's just... $200 must be like the worst deal they ever struck.
It won't last forever. But while it's lasting, an eat all you can buffet, as opposed to eat all you want, is definitely good. So my next steps on this one is to take these and go back through the cycle. So again, one up about thinking about the thinking.
Hey, this actually kills it. Like, it sucks when speaker 1 is distinguished. Like, I don't care who said it.
Yeah.
I really just don't care.
Yeah.
I just want to see the facts.
Right.
So this is way worse than the one before. Like, it confuses the message to say who said it.
Yes. Yeah. And it adds in bias and, this is what I was doing and so on.
Yeah.
Now, what I've not done with this thread. So then the next thing is to ask questions about, so in the same cyclic rinse and wash manner, to go up and saying, here's a thread. And what I want to do is to be able to ask a bot about a topic, and that topic may come from different areas and different files. What would be the best file structure to hold those in? So, excuse me. Sorry.
You okay, buddy?
Yeah, I've got a bit of a cold. Not much, it's a minor niggling thing. So, taking each of those as conceptually similar to a widget. So at this time, on this date, this was a topic. And
right.
Here's the summary. Here's the arguments for and against. Here are the
Right.
assertions. No
Right, right,
conclusion.
right.
And
And that
then
should be arranged in a web like a graph so you can navigate around
right,
from this thing
right.
to that thing.
And what that allows is then you can take a fresh thread of O3 and give it the context saying, I want to talk about this topic. And you go hunt and peck and pull on all the topics and going, right, okay, I understand. I understand pros, cons, summaries. I also know temporally how it's been developing, but you can also provide outside information. And so what I'm starting to believe is Commander isn't just one run. It is topic based at its heart. You don't give it the entire wedge of everything we've said. You just say we want to talk about um, attribution, for example, and then it goes and pulls out all these nuggets, puts them in time order, pulls in additional information, new information, and then can give you a very clear view of that. Now, if you wanted to compare and contrast what does attribution mean for contribution, you can do that, sure. But that, again, like your idea of you can't give it the whole whack at one time. You're saying, right, okay, so I want you to understand everything about attribution that we've talked about. Boom, it goes and searches, pulls it back. Now I want to have you understand everything about contribution that we've talked about. Boom, point brings it, and now you've got an interactive tool where you can say, right, what have we missed? What do we need to be doing next if our aim is to use you to create an attribution algorithm? And then I think we can start to get our teeth into it. So that's my
That
thinking
sounds
behind
awesome, dude. Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Also, it feels like how people kind of think.
Yeah, I don't know why the bots. I don't know why the bots have the same patterns of thought as us. It's almost like that's just how intelligence is. So I don't know if this is any use to you, but turns out that when I have a shared tab, this is you speaking,
Yeah,
and when I have a browser window open, I can record the mic, and it picks up the mic from in the meeting.
I see.
So I don't know if that
That
helps any.
feels useful.
I
It
know.
feels useful. You know, because if we had the same graph, then we could be talking to um, the screen and getting it to generate.
Yeah, on as it goes, really, right? And it's
Yeah.
sort of like the way for us to really get amplified, I think, is for the bot to start hauling in previous things because our brains have a twofold fault. Number one, they can't fit all our memories in our current context window in any given moment, is fault number one. And fault number two is they're strangely ignorant of missing information. And so we sit here and we think we know everything, but actually, there's all these links from like a year ago or 2 years ago that are like very relevant to right now. I got no idea, but my brain's telling me that everything's fine. It's fine. You understand. You're in tune. You know what's going on. This machine should be hauling up those things so that we get our neurons sparked by, and you're like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh
I
yeah.
agree. So
Right?
take
It's like a
transcript
context
you've got.
stuffer for us.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So if you take the transcript you've got there, and I said, now if you want to compare and contrast attribution means, okay, so it's got it slightly wrong. With contribution, what we'd expect is the background runner to say, you're now talking about attribution and contribution. I'm going to go and find all these time-stamped arguments with assertions and
Yeah,
pros and cons and
yeah,
summaries, and now I know what you're talking about
yeah,
without you having to say we're now talking about attribution.
yeah. And it should be able to take any new information we add and embed it across all the relevant topics.
Yeah.
Okay, now the danger of that sounds real cool, but like, that's us talking about how to make an AI product or a strategy that we build on top of our platform. And these types of discussions are taking our time. And I would like to call into question the utility of those types of things, because here's us fascinated with this new tool, finding a point application of it when really we're trying to stay above all that, because those things we're talking about are should be available for an army of people to have a go at. We're trying to hit the lamp. The lamp isn't. This is. I love what you're saying, but this is not the lamp.
Yes, I agree to a certain extent. What we've just talked through about this time transcription and the hunt and peck, and then understand the context, is a remedy. So let's just stow it in the remedy.
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
Um,
Sorry, I was not trying to stomp on that. That is
yeah,
great. I was trying to move on. I felt like that was tabled, and I wanted to move on to the next thing, which was raising a point of concern. It was not meant to. This is. I love this. This is what I'm saying is separate.
okay. So to address your point of concern, I think this is a necessary prerequisite to get a commander that actually knows what we're talking about by constraining what we're talking about at any one time. In the same way that you went through saying it's a rinse and wash cycle, you constrain, you get something very high value, and then you go up one level and up one level, and then cycle round. It's the same process.
I
So
wish
this
that
is
we could. Sorry.
no, you have it.
I wish that we could have a heuristic or a guidance memo that said how to choose what are valuable things to spend our time on, because it's clear that in order to reach ambient attribution, which is what we're calling the lamp, right?
Mm-hmm.
The lamp does require us to build some tools to help us get there faster, but we need a rule in place or a heuristic that yanks us up from the jewels, the temptations, all these fun things to build. So many useful things, good for us, good for others, good for everyone. Spending too much time on the tool and not staying focused on the lamp, building it out more than it should be, going down rabbit holes here, there, and everywhere. Like, we need to be more disciplined in starving ourselves of all the value we see around here for the sake of getting to the one thing we want. Like, as we get closer and closer to the lamp, the temptation gets stronger. Like, all these things, you're like, oh, I can make code really fast. Yeah. What other cool tools? Oh, I can make a recorder. I can make a CRM. I can make a thing. I can make, all these things, right? And then all these people come at us and say, like, hey, why don't you just make this thing? Hey, I'll give you like $100,000 if you make this thing. And we're like, well, no. Like, the closer we get to the lamp, the bigger the problem, the bigger the temptation. And so we gotta find a way to instill that in the commander. It's like there is only one thing that matters. It's getting ambient attribution up and running. And then we can come back down the mountain and grab all the jewels and all the lollies and all the everything on the way down. but we got to get that system going. And so the next topic I'd like to table, which I'll stop before that happens, is to have a wishful thinking type of a jam session about what it would be like to have ambient attribution in hand. Over to you.
Okay, so we've already got the etiquette for that. We can call that speakeasy. Although this is not a speakeasy, I'm answering your question.
Okay. Well, that's a good test for the transcriber, isn't it? You used a keyword inside of there.
No, well, let's see. What I'm focused on at the moment is getting high quality output out of the commander. I haven't even talked to the commander about attribution. Now, once we get high quality output from the commander, then we can give the commander knowledge about attribution. That's the hill that we want to die on.
Well, I'm not planning to die there, but if you want me to bury you there, I can, maybe.
But at the moment, that's the thing. Now, I've been quite ballsy the last couple of transcripts saying that I'm 1 or 2 days away from getting the commander. That was delayed a bit by the poor quality audio from last time. Hopefully this time is right, but I spent the rest of my time on this concept of effectively a knowledge widget. And I think with the right kind of graph, which for the time being we can use Concat to pull together, then we can get relatively easy a high quality commander. So the question is, I agree there's lots of squirrels running around and we tend to chase squirrels. However, we stuff them in remedies and we'll come back to them and ignore them. But the top level goal I've still got is to get the commander saying, right, you guys have been talking about this and this and this. Here is what your priority list is, and getting a very high quality output time and again from that. So the question is that still the best thing that to do, or should I give it an idea of what attribution is and then aim it at that without having the commander yet, and then use that in the same ways using the CRM and the diarizer thing to hone your skills?
Yeah, I think it's dead time to spend so much time on the commander when, if we go about applying the commander, you will learn more about how to make the commander better anyway. Take, for example, classic example, the mic recorder thing. Turns out that you're now getting better results from a single stream, and that's an indication that the commander is taking too much of your time, and that we need to find a way to focus upon the lamp and get you working on things that get us towards the lamp.
I agree. I think, though, that there's probably one more day's work, in the same way as you are effectively gifted code generation. I think about one more day away to being effectively gifted how to categorize and store knowledge that the AI optimizes on, which is a very similar thing. It's like base.
Right. So how do we time box it so that we can yank you out of it? Because this has been going on for, I have actually lost track of time, how long this has been going for, multiple weeks. And the commander is not in position to track the time these types of things have been going. We are still not following the commander's lead, so we don't like clock in or check in, all these kinds of things. So
Yes. So to time box it. Now you've added some bells and whistles onto that. Really, what we want from the commander is now what's the priority list. What we're meant to be moving
not even
on
that. It's
now.
like, what's the, give me first, second, third priority. That's it. It shouldn't even be, like if the thing you want to do isn't in the top 3, you need to be having some debate to get it either up ranked or to be convinced otherwise, I think.
Right. Well, we've already got the ability with the commander as is to produce a priority list based on stocks.
Right.
I've introduced a new thing, which is topics, which is not quite a stock. It's context.
Yeah, that's very fruitful. The topic thing, it's like a knowledge, a fact or something,
Right.
or factoid or whatever the hell you call them. But
Yeah. So, sorry, finish my thought there. So, you asked a very specific question to time
yes,
box. With the previous commander, we know we can regenerate stocks and a priority list. With this approach, we know that we can generate the topics so that it knows the context and focuses down specifically. Um, the If I were to not worry about going back in time over transcripts to try and do the same thing, then tomorrow I could probably deliver what the commander thinks is now, but
do it,
it would be based
do
on,
it,
yeah, it would
do
be
it, fuck it,
substandard. But
do it,
yeah,
fuck it.
yeah,
Now
okay,
substandard is a billion times better than the later full standard.
yeah,
We don't
okay,
have time. We got roughly 3 weeks, and then the smartest machine ever made
I know.
arrives.
I've been dreaming, or having nightmares, or whatever.
Having something, right? Like
Yeah,
emotional arousal or whatever the hell you call it. But
yeah,
so even now, like, the SDKs that I use, you can select O3. Like O3, it won't run, but you can configure the SDK to use it. Like, that's how ready everyone is for it,
it's
right? Like,
it's
everyone is ready for O3, and they're like, here we go, fellas. 87% on the AGI benchmarks. Let's go,
So
right?
what I'm going to do is, well, here's the thing, right? Because eat all you can buffet. Um, I'll take all our previous raw.mds that we have, and then stick them through the same prompt on this, and then generate a bunch of files.
I think that you should do whatever you feel is necessary, but I would like to see a time box put on us. I feel like the command is running perfectly fine. The reason I'm pushing for time box is that
Mhm.
you are pushing me for nap to nap.
Yep.
I'm trying to do that at the same time as the CRM, which is a little bit dorky, but I think I'm actually successfully uplifting both those things. Like, for example, I built the NAP interface today, the interface for it, and I was like, that's pretty sweet. And O1 Pro even gave me some props for it. It was like, that's a pretty good interface. It's pretty solid. But my point is that as soon as you said that if nap to nap communication was here, many things for you would be 10 times faster.
Yes.
So your time then is best spent doing other things that are not going to be 10 times faster in preparation for that. The commander will be 10 times faster to perfect. You have clearly got it to 80% or more. The last 20%, as we know, can cause you to die, suffocate, or kill yourself because you're like, I just can't go on like this anymore, right? That's the curse of AI. But that last 20% sitting on top of the nap-to-nap communication platform will be 10 times faster. It is therefore poor use of your time to continue any further than the bare minimum to just get us limping along, just like we're doing with recording these things here. Because who knows what discovery will happen tomorrow that means that the commander may need to change a little bit or whatever. Who knows? And so what I'm trying to drive at is that wise use of time is to pause as soon as you possibly can on the commander to focus on the lamp, because the lamp is neglected. We always find these things along the way that, with the most respectful air quotes I can muster, need to be done, and they do to some degree, but the lamp remains undeclared. It remains unreasoned, undefined. It's not in sight, right? We just gesture to it like it's over that mountain ridge, but we don't try and hit it. And I tell you, we can hit it. And when O3 gets here, we can actually fucking reach it. And so what are we doing? What are we doing? This is as much your problem as mine, but what are we doing to get the lamp?
Right. What I think we should be doing. Pause. There was a colon in there as well. It makes sense to me to commit the flow that produced these topics, and potentially also fire and forget on the previous ones, because that could just churn. It doesn't need anything new. But importantly, commit the flow to Git, so that when we point the commander at a thing, we still know what we're talking about, because the commander needs to know what that flow is. For example, taking in transcripts, turning them into topics, linking topics. It doesn't actually need any tools to do that.
No.
Because we've got Concat.
That's right.
But it would be slow to have to remember again, okay, so Concat this and that and this and that and that. So what I'm going to do is, inside of reasoning, create a bunch of naps about how we got to this place. So at least I can go back and cut and paste it back in, and that may include prompts, that may include command line concats, and so on. But let's, if we're climbing a mountain, what I'm saying is let's drive in a piton at this place, and then start climbing up from that. And time boxed wise, that doesn't sound so hard. That would be a day or two to drive in that piton. So if we do drop, at least we can go back to this point, or if we get distracted, we can drop back to this point, because I think we're at a fairly good place in terms of everything we've done up to this point.
Yeah, I think it works perfectly fine to just have, those facts or topics that you had extracted there, feed them into the next conversation, and then generate the next round of, like maybe the last 2 weeks worth of topics. feed it in, and then get it out. It seems like it does remarkably well off of no history, because I think we intrinsically or innately do a good job of we kind of have an instinct of what's honestly the right thing to be doing, and so it's, I think that's why it does quite well on a zero shot, because yeah, like we do want this thing to work, and so I reckon the commander works just fine without the history. I think the history is the complication that will cost you a lot of time and effort and meandering, and especially since you don't have a platform to automate some of the steps, or even automate the experimentation with the strategies of different things. I think that that's a candidate for immediate 10x speed up, and so my vote is to actually not do that, and just be happy with this one-shot processing that you've got, because I think that that serves our purpose thoroughly well.
I agree, because in one shot, empty thread, I got in that one transcript what you saw without
Yeah.
giving it any definitions
Yeah.
or any context.
Yeah, and that's perfect. And the rest, the next level of processing, needs the platform and should wait for the platform. So, okay, sounds like roaring agreement there. I got 0 minutes, but
That's a nice backdrop. You just generate that.
no, I googled it. The old way.
What's Google again? I thought those guys were dead.
Yeah, they got a new product out called Gemini. I sent you a link to it. It was a buddy of mine at the office told me about it. It's Gemini Deep Research or something. And
it's quite interesting that I read that.
But this lamp, buddy, I don't have a lot of time. Can I just take a quick rant to sort of not speak easy? That's not speak easy. It's tabling. I want to table what it's like to have the lamp in hand. Is that okay? So, how do we know when we've got ambient attribution in hand? It should be that you and I can work out who earned what of our lengthy contributions to things. We should be able to have the beginning, even if it's just of the last day. It doesn't have to be for all eternity. It could just be for a small snippet of something. Who contributed what? How is it attributed to? Ambient attribution in hand means doing something like the CRM. We can go to the CRM guys and calculate a price and justify it with ambient attribution in hand, when we're like, well, this is what our machines worked out to be fair. We can cut deals either side of that, but like the bot, this is the reasoning behind why this number is this number. Please give us more information so that we can reason better, and if you flat out don't like it, that's fine. We'll take that on the chin. We're just those kind of guys. But I want to be able to start some business relationships. Like, I know a lot of good people and good business people, and I want to be able to do business with them, but I don't want to do it without the bot overseeing who gets how much of the pie, because otherwise we'll become enemies. And so what I really want in holding this lamp is to be able to go and do a thing with you to start with, a little side project. I don't much care what it is, and use ambient attribution to figure out what we got. And then, there's nothing stopping it from being, if you got more than me or I got more than you, us putting it all in a pot and saying, like, let's go do the next thing. Like, it's not about what we do with it. It's just about how do we use this thing to calculate it, because we got to bring on person number 3. Like, we've been in a 2-person meeting for half a decade now, and we need a 3rd person, a 4th person. We need to get to like hundreds of people, and that lamp is the thing that will allow us to do that, because otherwise we're going to be sitting here in that same old familiar room with everyone looking at their share allocations, their salary package, and all needling away and trying to fucking write the same old shit. And then the investors are like, "Oh, I need my investment."
Sorry, interruption, because I know all that bit you're about to say about what we're trying to avoid. We've got it was almost I think a Saturday afternoon thing where I actually started to zero shot the bot on attribution on the last transcript based on whether new ideas were introduced, whether it was just going through stuff. You remember? And it came up.
What is the point of remembering?
The point is that is one metric that is in attribution or could be put in attribution, and it was very easy to do. And so if I were to table a task for Commander to steer us towards in identifying what those metrics are, beyond that, then I think we could get somewhere, especially when O3 comes through.
Here's the thing that bothers me. I feel like I can, with between 2 days and a week worth of hardcore prompting, I feel like I can generate the formulas for ambient attribution calculation, where those formulas are not the specifics, because the specifics are down to tuning and preference and consensus and all that, but there's a fundamental chassis, a foundation, or there's the bones of it, the skeleton that has to be that way. And I think that I can define those formulas in about a week.
Certainly you can. However, it's rather vague, but it's about 6 months ago when we were talking about impact crystals that I prompted up exactly that chassis that you're talking about how to get relative weights on disparate areas and to get opinion together based on usage and so on. And so it's in there in GitHub rather than you spend a week, which is not necessary. Because I think we can go back and look at that, and with O1 Pro, do it in half a day.
No, sir. No, sir.
You don't think?
The information contained within is not sufficient to represent the versions that I have in mind. I have shared chats with you about those formulas, and nowhere in our records do we keep anything close to that. And so I don't know what the point is of...
The point is, we've gone through quite a lot of thinking when we're talking about impact crystals, which translates very well. There is a new process which you've discovered around LaTeX, and that can be applied to it, I think, much faster. Now, is your question, should you stop doing the CRM work and work on ambient attribution for a week?
Yeah, that's it, really. Or should I be allocated a boxed amount of time to do that? I think the more adult question is there something more important than defining those formulas right now?
I I I think there is. I think the selection and maintenance of the goal. Your time is best on um, learning how to use these tools, specifically with the CRM. My best time is in how to use these tools, specifically with Commander. And once we, hopefully, a short number of days, get to that point, then we can point at attribution.
Okay. Are there any better or are there any other paths to get to the lamp that we haven't spoken about?
We could do the AI equivalent of hacking our way to the lamp, which would involve lots of tabs and spoiled context, but a lot of monkey brain. And sure, we could probably get within touching distance, but would we actually own the lamp? I'm not entirely sure. It's not getting to the lamp, it's actually getting out of the cave with the lamp.
That's a good point. Rather than dying clutching this beautiful thing. I got it. Oh no. Okay, another angle then. The lamp must be mounted on artifact because it needs the Git based structure to record contribution. And so building the platform, building nap to nap is the adult's way of getting to the lamp. Like trying to do the formulas now before the platform is ill coordinated because the formulas won't change that the platform needs to be there anyway. Right?
Yes. Counterpoint question. How much could we do with cursor and cut and paste?
You mean the formulas? Not enough. I think the formulas are best spent on O3. When does O3 and O3 Mini? When's this thing coming? So
I had it in my head it's about 6 days away, but I'm not sure where I picked that up from.
So O3, so on SWEbench, the software engineering benchmark, O3 scored 71% compared to 48.9 for O1.
Yeah. So it's we'll just take it as read that O3 is better.
Okay, so in terms of time, yeah, but we're dealing with O3 Mini though. That's the thing. Like, is Mini versus the
no, you're thinking along the long ways. Does it matter whether it's 5 days time or 5 months time to get to it, based on what we're doing at the moment, even if it is Mini.
Yeah, okay, so basically hold off on the formulas until O3 arrives and then reassess. Carry on making the artifact platform as best we can because I don't think O3 is going to make that terribly much faster. Anyway, it turns out, as per my lessons today, that spending the time to think about the architecture and work with the bot on it is what's required. I get learning of how to build these tools while I build the components of the CRM. I also am building the back-end bits of Artifact along the way. So carry on, I suppose. Hey?
And I'm going to go and number one, record and commit the process for getting these topics. Extract the topics from, say, the last 2 weeks. And then we designed the Commander with O1's help, O1 Pro's help, in order to give us a priority list, which is really what we're after, and the reasoning why. I'm ignoring Overwatch for now, and I'm ignoring tools for now. Any kind of utils.
Okay. Shall I stop the recording?
Yep.